Hi everybody, welcome to Photographer's Coffee Morning. I am sat here with the amazing Tom Barnes today, commercial photographer, celebrity photographer and podcaster extraordinaire.
Bless you.
I'm sure this is the case for many other people as well, but the Exposed Negative did get me through lockdown in a lot of ways. It helped me to feel connected with the industry that I was in, and especially when there was not a lot of other positive stuff, it was something I look forward to every week. It was amazing, so thank you for doing that.
To be honest, it really helped me get through lockdown as well. We didn't really have a lot going on, and me and Greg literally sent each other... Do you know the story? Like, we'd only met like once before, and just randomly out of the blue, we had just sent each other a message not far off, like cross streams, and just been like, yeah, we should start a podcast. And it's become this kind of thing. It's obviously a huge time suck, and it's not much fun to edit. But as far as knowledge gathered and hopefully knowledge spread, I think we're doing all right.
The reason why I loved it so much is I hadn't long gone freelance as a commercial photographer when you started doing this, essentially. Mm-hmm. I'd worked in-house for years before then. My work's been used all over the place, like by homeware companies, like internationally, big campaigns, small ones. Mm-hmm. I was new, like really green. And part of the thing that I loved about the podcast was how open everybody was. Like, I find it because, like, I'd followed Julian Love for years since he started doing his Immigrants project on the Hasselblad, and just loved all this stuff. And found Greg's stuff like randomly through Pinterest, like years ago. I think he was doing work with an optician. Found your work tangentially through that as well. But I remember listening to the first episode and wishing that Julian had a slightly better microphone, but otherwise just being blown away by like how good everything was, like, and how refreshing it was to hear a photographer talk about pursuing personal projects and the kind of reality of not being able to share things always, and trying to present your vision as opposed to what you just hired for. And it opened up an entire new world for me, being green and being in the north of England, which historically has not been the place with the majority of the commercial work. It felt like I had a window into the next step in my career. And I'm sure there are a lot of other people that feel that way. And for anybody that's listening that hasn't gone through and digested your entire back catalogue, you should do that. There's a link in the show notes, so click it, subscribe now, listen later. Please don't abandon me.
Don't worry. There's plenty of listeners to go around.
Yeah, and there's lots of hours in the day. We spend so much time in front of a computer editing or like colour correcting and all the rest of it, or even just doing accounts like at this time of year. I just wanted to say a public thank you for that, because without that podcast, I would have felt a million times more isolated than I was. And I'm sure that you've heard this all over, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't tell you how valuable it was for me personally.
Thank you very much. That's a properly nice thing to hear. So basically, that means we're achieving our mission. Like, our goal was to start something to really just... Because me and Greg, we chatted and we were just saying, when we used to shoot film, like, we'd drop the films at the lab and then we'd all go for lunch. And there was a lovely little community and everyone knew everyone else and we'd all be dotted around. Now, I was out of town, so I actually was less involved, quite a lot less involved. But I still remember going to the pub, bumping into people, meeting all these people, and it was great. But since the advent of things like... It's going to make me sound really old, but like the things like digital and COVID and stuff like that, that just doesn't happen anymore. Especially not now. So many people are working from home that even just getting meetings is difficult, let alone getting to the pub and just having like a chance meeting with someone. No, that's really nice to hear. And you know what? What's really nice to hear is that we've only ever had one... Greg's going to kill me if he hears this. We've only ever had one negative message. And it was,
that's unheard of.
This is it. We're on the internet, right? Only positive things come on the internet, and it's not got to me. This one message definitely hasn't got to me, and definitely hasn't been burning inside. But honestly, 99.9% of the feedback has just been absolutely amazing, and it's been so nice to have been involved in something that has been so beneficial to so many people, basically. And it's really nice that we've been able to help.
I think saying that you're involved in it is a bit of an understatement, because honestly, I think that half the time I enjoyed the preamble before you get into the interview with the guest more than the actual interview. And that's not a slight against your guests by any stretch, but there's just something about inside baseball that I think everybody can appreciate, and seeing people's careers change and doing the same thing we all do, like buying far too much kit or obsessing a little bit too much about the minutiae of our work. And hearing other people go through that process is a massive thing. And I can definitely relate with the lockdown thing, because I spent most of my lockdown time working on Clubhouse and trying to get better at helping people live. And I think I spent about 25 hours a week trying to do stuff that would help influence people, help them to feel community, etc. But honestly, I only really did that because you'd shown me that it was possible earlier on. And I think that genuinely, this podcast owes its existence in a lot of ways to the fact that you were willing to put yourself out there and share the information you had, because I don't think you realised how scarce the knowledge you were sharing was.
We did. We absolutely did. Yeah. So me and Greg don't believe in gatekeeping at all. If someone says, "How do you like that?" I'll be like, "Oh, it was a 3x4, probably at about 45-degree angle around here," and then I'll put it in. I don't care. Without being funny, my artistic vision will be completely different to your artistic vision. You like things in the exact same way. We'll come away with completely different shots. The idea of gatekeeping, I don't get it. I don't understand why it exists and why people do it. I understand you want to maintain like a certain aura or some magic around your work, but that was the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Now we've got the internet, right? You can look up how anything was lit, and there's no point in gatekeeping. You've got people who've got millions of subscribers on YouTube because they don't gatekeep. And they're giving away all this info. There's never been a better time, never been a better and a worse time to be a photographer. Because whatever you do, if there's anyone listening now, do not go to college. Do not go to uni to study photography. Go to college to study anything else. I'm actually, believe it or not, a fully qualified chartered surveyor with an economics degree. Years ago when I was at college, I rang my uncle, who was a producer, and I said, "Look, I'd like to be a photographer." And after he'd picked himself up off the floor and had finished laughing, and it was weird because my phone battery ran out before he finished laughing. He was he was having a time, and he's been super helpful and super like nurturing in a way. But he just said, "Look, go to uni and study anything else. Photography is so competitive that you probably will not make it." And this is the sort of conversation that people don't seem to have. There's a couple of rules, right? Never listen to your family and your friends. Don't. Honestly, go and speak to someone who is... I know I spoke to my uncle, but my uncle's... He's about as honest as you could possibly get. And if you ask him a question, he'll say, "Oh, that's BS." He said, "Look, you will put yourself in debt, which you might not recover from, and you go off and study something that if you do fail in photography, give it 2 years after you've graduated. And if at the end of 2 years, move on and do something else." And you go, "Yeah, okay. All right, I'll give it 2 years." And it just so happened that in the first year of university, I ended up going to a show of a band who then became one of the biggest heavy metal rock bands in the world. And I was at their first ever show, and I was like, wow, there's something about these guys. I'll DM them on MySpace. And that I got back in from the show and sent them a message on MySpace, and then that was the start of my career. I then went off, toured the world, did all sorts. So my final year of uni comes around, I get a phone call when I'm on a job for Kerrang, touring around America with Slipknot. And they're like, "Hey, Tom, what's up? You need to come to uni because you're going to get kicked off the course. Your attendance record's 11%. And I was like, "Yeah, that is quite low." That is lower than I thought. So I got them to send me some coursework, and I did the coursework, and then I flew back and I then attended every single lesson. My attendance record went up 38%, and then I passed the year with a 2.2, and I got my degree. But then I went to my parents and I said, "Look, just so you know, would you mind if I was a photographer?" And my mum said, "Oh, it depends if you're going to be a successful photographer." And at the time, I had just had my first ever feature on me in Photography Monthly. Shout out to the editor at the time, Adam Scory, who I'll never forget. And he had I'd had a big 5-page piece about me and my work. And I just slid that across the table to my mum, and I was like, I'll be all right. And then I'm now like 20-something years into this, and it's going all right. 2023 seems like a bit of a tough year for everyone. And the advent of AI obviously is going to be interesting, but it's all right. Photography has allowed me a life that is unattainable in any other career. It's given me the world's most amazing experiences, from photographing people in the palaces of Westminster all the way through to living in refugee camps and smuggling myself into war zones and going and living on rubbish dumps in Indonesia. And I've had some crazy experiences. Like the other day, I photographed someone. Actually, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Before I give anything away.
That's fine. Don't worry. We're not going to push your NDAs.
No, that's for a top secret show coming out on a TV channel.
Near you.
near you, yeah. But it's photography is. Whenever anyone says, "Oh, do you enjoy photography?" I say, no, I don't enjoy it. I absolutely love it. I'd chop off all my limbs and probably my own head to be able to continue doing my photography as a career.
Just like the head in the jar from Futurama, you're just going to sit there on a shelf being fed fish food with a camera in front of you.
So I more see it as like Krang. So yeah. I'd be the head in someone's like waist belt, like some super tonk massive dude who can just walk me around and hold a camera in front of me. But yeah, exactly that.
For anybody that's not watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that might end up being a little bit of an obscure reference. But if you haven't, like, why are you here?
Exactly, quite. And if you haven't, that's what you're doing this weekend. So I have above my, I mean, you can't see it, but I have above my desks. I had maybe 1 or 2 drinks a couple of years ago and realised that my office walls were quite bare. And so I ended up on Japanese eBay. Now, I do this every now and then about 6 months later, something will turn up in the post and I'm like, this is really cool, but like, where did it come from? And then I looked back through my eBay history. And so this is what happened. So I've got the original 80s posters for the Japanese posters from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters 2 and Gremlins. And they're from a really small little Japanese cinema that had all the original posters laid flat. So none of the edges were frayed, nothing. Yeah, pretty cool. Bit of a side note, Petapixel ran an amazing article with the photographer who shot it. So if anyone's interested in to see how a 1980s comp happens, go and read that article, because he was given the masks, he was given the heads from the show, and then it's all comped in, and the whole background plate was shot on a fisheye. He got paid absolutely nothing for it. It's a cool story. It's obviously not the payment side of things, but go and read it up. It's interesting. Sorry, Tom. A bit of a side swipe there.
Tangents are fine. Don't worry. We're here for them. If we can find the article, I'll stick it in the show notes. Everything will be good. But actually, that kind of brings me a little bit onto your work, because you mentioned the variety that you've covered and the different subject matter, etc. And for anybody that's not already doing it, it's tombarnes.com on Instagram. Check his work out. But for me, like, you can see all the celebrity work that he's done. Like, the stuff you did with Simon Pegg was incredible. Love the stuff that you did with David Baddiel. Some really beautiful classic portraits on white. Incredible work. You've done some stuff for Top Gear and all sorts of other outlets. Incredible stuff. But for me, some of the projects that I've appreciated the most from you have been some of the most humble in terms of their scope. Like, when I look at your work and think about, oh, that's a Tom Barnes image, it's usually not the celebrity work. I'm thinking of you working with the VFX makeup art. I'm thinking of you work in mechanics sheds. I'm thinking of you working with people like doing arc welding and curating in museums. The common thread for me is seeing people in context but made to feel more important than the environment they're in. You work as a real sense of identity, in the sense of somebody being important in context of what they do, but shaping the surroundings around them. You have a real way of carving your subject out from their environment. And we've talked a little bit about kit already, and definitely in the pre-show, but obviously a big cornerstone of your style is off-camera flash, and it's something that a lot of photographers will shy away from, especially when they're learning, because they think it's too difficult to learn, it's not worth it, they don't want to carry the equipment. And I was interested as to how that style developed for you. Like, how did you get to the point when you started as a photographer? Obviously, you've been working with magazines at shows and gigs and concerts, but at what point did you start to pursue this particular avenue of photography? How did you develop your off-camera flash at the beginning?
Firstly, let me go back to what you said, because that's a huge compliment, because that's exactly what I set out to do with my work. So thank you. I'm thrilled that is how you perceive my work. So thank you very much. My thing has always been wanting to make people look strong, confident, and more powerful than they maybe feel. And I had shown my portfolio to some people years and years ago, and they were like, yeah, you need more vulnerability, you need more sadness. And I was like, no, I don't do that. My thing is like making people look cool, confident, powerful, and like in control, right? I got no interest in making people look weak, sad, vulnerable. I got zero interest in that. My thing is always about strength and confidence, right? Because why would you not want to come across as strong and confident when I'm on a shoot? That's hopefully how I make people feel. That's my whole thing, is I'm forever wanting to try and build people up. And let's go on to off-camera flash, or as I refer to it, flash. Number one, get your ambient exposure and then just bring the flash up till it suits you creatively.
That'll work.
You can make it more complicated, but that is very much the basic principle of it. The tricky thing is when it comes to riding the ambient. For example, if the sun goes behind a cloud, or there's no control over the lighting, or if it drops slightly or something like that. Sorry, I was up in the night with my toddler.
Don't worry.
But the way I got started is a funny story, and I won't say which store it was, but I ordered, in the early days of my career, I had bought not Interfit, it might be Interfit, like an Interfit 200 watt or 100, maybe a 60 watt flash. And I had set it up against a bedsheet in my old studio flat in Sheffield. And I had just started learning how flash worked. And at the time I was like 18, 19, I had loads of friends who would just swing by. It was a bit of a party flat. And so everyone who came through had their portrait taken. And I look back at them now, I'm like, wow. But it was a really good learning curve. And I then was like, okay, I'm going to upgrade these flashes. I'm going to buy a 2-head Bowens 500 kit, Gemini. And I ordered it. Because the joy about being a student is when you get your student loan, you suddenly go, wow, I've got like 1,200 quid in the account, which I had not had before, come in like stages. And I am not giving anyone financial advice. Absolutely not. Do not do this. But when the money came in, I was like, oh, what could I buy? I could buy some flash, or I could buy a new camera. I could buy a new lens. And so I did that, and then suddenly went, what am I going to live on? Yeah.
It's okay, ramen's £1 a packet, you're fine.
To be honest, I did survive pretty much my first year of uni on rice and peas. But I ended up working 4 jobs. I worked in a fetish shop, I worked in 2 bars, and I worked in a record store as well. A record store / gift / like a Famous Stars and Straps, if anyone remembers that kind of clothing store. And so then between working in the various nightclubs and trying to do shoots in the day, and then also working in the shops, it basically meant that I didn't really have any time for uni, but I was still going. Not very much.
11%.
11%, yeah.
Yeah.
But I ordered this Bowens 500 Gemini kit, the big one in the terribly designed arc-topped case. Shout out to any of the original Bowens team. And it arrived, but the store, who I won't say the name of, sent me the travel pack kit. Actually, I can say it was Wex, but I'd rung them and I said, guys, I think you've sent me the wrong thing. And they said, oh, cool, we'll check it and get back to you. And I got a phone call back going, no, it's the right thing we've sent you. I was like, all right, cool.
I'd take the win.
Definitely didn't pay for a battery location pack. But weirdly, I then had a location battery. And so I would take these 500 watt Gemini kits out and I would start shooting out on location. And then the rest of my career, that's been what I've done. That's what I love. Honestly, I absolutely love it. I love shooting in the studio and I love being able to set studios up anywhere. I would like to say that I'm like, hopefully the world's most flexible man. Not physically. Put me anywhere and I'd be like, yeah, fine, cool, we'll get this sorted. You know, I love the challenge. Even 20-something years in, I'm like, cool, what's the next challenge? So it's a super fun career. In case anyone's like on the fence about whether they should or shouldn't do it. Just don't do it at uni.
That's really good advice for anybody. You're right. You can learn pretty much anything online now. And if you want to become a photographer, the best way to do it is to go out and take photographs. I think one of the things that stood out to me about the story you just told about how you got started here was that element of serendipity and being okay to play. Like you ordered a kit, something new came in that you weren't expecting, and rather than thinking, oh great, I don't need this battery, and putting it in a cupboard and leaving it, you went out, took it out and started making portraits. And I think that one thing that really makes your work stand out from the crowd is the sheer consistency of it. There is nobody else I can think of that has this level of consistency frame to frame. If you have one subject, you're going to treat them exactly the same way as another. And as I mentioned, part of the reason why I really like your normal, like non-celebrity work is because you elevate people that are not given like social standing in exactly the same way. It's a really democratic way of approaching photography. And I don't think that happens on purpose necessarily in the beginning. I think a big part of how we develop these things is by giving ourselves room to experiment, room to play, and then being brave enough to not acquiesce. Let's not give in when people say things like you said earlier, oh, where's the somber? Where is the emotion? That's not what I'm about. I'm about making somebody feel powerful. I'm about ego without restraint, but in a humble way. And I think that level of dedication to a vision is something that doesn't happen a lot. And one of my kind of hills that I'll die on is that I think that people don't give themselves enough time to experiment now in the way that they should. So one of the things that really has appealed to me about photography generally is the way that equipment can give you a fresh lease on your approach to photography or on your work. And I think you're one of the best people out there for allowing that experimentation. And strangely, like obviously from your own podcast, I already know a little bit about the equipment you've been using and the direction you've been going in. But if you looked at your work, I honestly couldn't tell you what camera system you're using. I couldn't tell what lenses you were using because all I see is your intent for the shoot.
Should I tell you why you can't? So, probably the reason you can't tell, or you don't know which camera or which lens, is it doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant. I could shoot it on a 35mm Contax, or I could shoot it on a Hasselblad, or I could be shooting it on a Phase, or I've done all of these. It doesn't matter. What matters is the output. Right, and this is I'm not going to lie, this is really something that's happened to me in the past 7 months, maybe a year, is that I have surrounded myself with really good people, and really good people that I can talk openly about equipment with. I think for a lot of my career, people knew me as the gear guy, right? I'd have the gear for everything, and as you can see, I've got racks of it. But it might surprise you to hear that by the time this podcast gets released, all of this will be gone. It's all going. Every single thing. All of this is going as well. Completely. So I'll be very open and honest with you, Tom, because I believe in open and honesty. I've been speaking to a counsellor. And one of the things that I have been speaking to my counsellor about is my never-ending obsession with camera equipment and buying stuff. And part of it, we figured out, is maybe process addiction. So you're addicted to the process on creating ways of working with this equipment. But also there's like that dopamine hit of when you buy the cameras. And because I've been now doing it so long, it's a proper law of diminishing returns. I'm talking to you now on an R6 Mark II. That is my webcam.
That's a fancy webcam.
It is. I would say that a R6 Mark II with a 24-70 RF is overkill for a webcam, mainly because it normally has the 15-35 on, but it is complete overkill for a webcam. And all of this stuff I have, and I'm sick of loading it in and out of the car, or getting to a hotel and then having to load everything out of the car into the hotel. And none of it matters. I would bring out all this stuff, and the majority of my work uses 4 lights maximum. Absolute max. So now everything is getting shrunk down. So I will have a camera bag, and I will have 2 big rollers, the Production Manager 40s, and in those rollers, 2 heads, 2 stands, some modifiers, some reflectors, and they're both identical. So I can pick any of them up and just go, and then I'll have a digi case as well, and then obviously some other cases for moving image. But the principle of it is that I'm going from probably 25 cases to 4, which is a massive change. It's an interesting time for photographers, as we all know, and I just think that gas is a terrible thing for us to have. And also I've got umbrage with the gear acquisition syndrome and gas, right? I think that's a really dangerous term because it completely normalizes, and it makes it completely normal for photographers to amass huge amounts of equipment. and spend so much money. In the early days, maybe this will resonate with someone. If someone could go back to me when I'm 20, 21 and be an angel on my shoulder, because with photography equipment, we've always got the devil on our shoulder, right? But we've very rarely got the angel, because we can always justify it. This will make me better. This will change my look. This will make me faster. This will make me more efficient. This will make me money. Quite often, if we're truly honest with ourselves, none of those things happen. It doesn't. Unless you are renting out your equipment on every single job, which I was doing. But then 2023 seemingly come along, and actually, I've had enough of it. Slogging all this stuff around. I bought a lowered car, stupidly. I bought a sports car. Not a sports car, like a sport estate. The ride in it is so harsh when it's just me in the car, and then when it's loaded with kit, it is like the most uncomfortable, like the belly on the... Yeah, it's not, it's not good. But if someone had gone back to me in 2021 and said, hey, what's up? Instead of buying that thing you absolutely don't need, why don't you put 100 quid into your pension?
Yeah, that is a thing.
Why don't you put 100 quid into an ISA? If you start at 21, even putting small amounts of money in, by the time you're like 40, that'll be a decent pot. If you can do it small amounts and regularly, and then over time, that'll just build. If you then are at 38, 40, trying to start a pension, get it back to that level, the amount of catch-up you've got to do is unbelievable. And actually, do you really need that thing? Maybe when you're starting out, maybe upgrading the lens. But here's the thing. If you're going to upgrade to a lens, for example, if you're a Canon shooter, upgrade to the RF 24-70. And don't buy the EF version. Even though it'll be a bit more cash, I would stretch to it, because that is going to be the standard lens. There'll be an RF 24-70 Mark II in 3-4 years, maybe 5. But the lens now is so good, it doesn't need improving. And that lens could very well... The EF system was, early 80s to now. They're still making the lenses now. So
they've literally just stopped. We're talking like they've got warehoused, remained in stock, but the rest of it's done. I think the only thing they're still producing is the Cines.
Right, so here's the thing, right? Okay, but that's still almost 30 years, maybe more. Yeah. And you go, actually, if I buy this 24-70 now and I go into that system, that lens could last me half my career. If I look after it, maintain it, that could last me half my career. And I do want to talk about camera system swaps. I'm well known for having done lots of system swaps, right? I've done 9 swaps in 4 years. I've owned them all, from Phase 1 to Hasselblad to Leica to Sony. I think the only ones that I never did was Pentax. I never owned a 645Z. No, that's it. I think that's the only one that I didn't own. I think I owned every other system. And honestly, they're all the same. There are pros and cons of each, but they're now all, you might agree or you might disagree, but they are all so good now that the onus and the problems with the systems are actually very rarely with the systems and more on the owners. And I wish that I had realised before doing all these changes, and I wish I'd never even done a single change. I wish I'd just stayed with Canon, and I wish I'd just stuck with it, never wasted any money. I've spent thousands on all these swaps, and I wish I had put that into a pension, or I wish I had gone on a lovely holiday, or anything else. Or you know what, I wish I put it into my personal work.
And I think that's definitely a factor. And the first thing I'd say is you're not alone on the kind of therapy and the kind of... I do think it's dangerous when you minimize gear acquisition. Like for me, I have recently been having therapy, not for photography stuff, but just generally. The way that it's affected my confidence and my ability to make decisions clearly has been enormous. And I think to say there's no difference between the systems isn't true, but I think the point you're trying to get at is that every option is valid.
Oh yeah, there's not. I'm not saying that there is absolutely no difference between the systems. There obviously are, but they're quite minor, really, in the grand scheme of things. I didn't really like Sony's colour, but really, could I have got around it? Yes, I've got friends who shoot on Sony and they achieve beautiful colours. So it's not. It was my shortcomings with that system. I totally agree that they're not all the same, but the changes aren't as grand as they were 10, 15 years ago, right?
No, they're not.
They really aren't. And I do feel that camera technology is like plateauing a little bit. We've just seen, I've got the R6 Mark II here. It's really not very different to the R6. Really not. Was more expensive.
That's a point that I've made in previous podcasts, because ultimately what I was trying to get to is that the reason that we feel this way is because somebody is making us feel this. To give a prime example, this podcast every week gets uploaded to YouTube, and the statistics typically have been like 200 views on the average podcast. And then if I post anything where the main subject of the conversation is equipment, it gets 2,000.
Yep.
And I'm looking at the numbers. Like last week's podcast is outperforming previous podcasts by like more than 10 times, because I led with a conversation about a medium format camera, and the one following I led with a conversation about the X100V Fujifilm. People want to talk about kit. There is literally a guide on my channel of exactly how to color grade log footage start to finish. I sell this as a course, and it's 1,500 quid a day to go through it, and it has less than 2,000 views at the moment. So the reason we feel this way is partially because, yes, like we feel inadequate sometimes. We think, I am not good enough. This equipment will make me good enough. And it never will, because the fact is the issue is with us and not with the equipment. The fault is not in our stars, it's in ourselves. It's that kind of statement.
Do you know one of the troubles with equipment is that because we've all learnt to get to a certain point, we remember that in the early days of our, I used to be endorsed by a hard drive company, and I used to tour the world giving kind of lectures on storage best practice and stuff like that. I was doing a round table once, a really interesting discussion with heads of the camera industry and stuff, and they said, does camera equipment enable creativity? And I said yes and no. They said yes, it does to a point, and then it stops enabling creativity, or it lessens it. The more equipment you end up getting, a lot of people don't, but a lot of people do end up feeling a slight kind of paralysis of, I can't go out and shoot something because it needs to look like this, and to do this I need to bring out 10 lights, 2 assistants, Whereas now, minimizing my kit down, I'm just going to go off, me on my own, and just go and shoot some projects. Doesn't matter now. Don't need crew, don't need anyone else. I'm just like early doors, that's how I'm going to go and do it. And in the early doors of your career, the camera does enable the creativity, because you're learning into it. And then it gets to a point where you're almost still chasing that kind of initial feeling of wonderment that you had when you were like learning. And so for me, having had the realization that isn't going to happen has been very freeing. I'm no longer chasing this, and I'm really happy with the camera systems. And actually you should be too, because the likelihood is you don't need to change. Unless you're coming up from DSLR to mirrorless, which is a big change and is something that really there are lots of advantages to swapping to mirrorless. But if your current kit works fine, do you really need to upgrade? Do you need to change? Do you need to spend that money?
It's interesting you say that, because I think the distinguishing factor here is that you're removing extraneous equipment. You've defined your style, you've gone through that period of experimentation, you've done the work, you've found the thing that you care about and the thing that you love, and you've now decided that this is what I want to make. Anything else that is not this is not for me and is not required anymore. So you're getting rid of extraneous information, extraneous detail. And I'm with you. We've had conversations back and forth on Instagram and elsewhere about this kind of stuff in the past, and for me, recently I picked up the GFX 50S, the original one, the fat chunky one. I paid £1,000 for this. It's not an expensive camera now.
I had that. I used to love that camera.
And it's lovely, but I'm using it with a £400 lens because I know what the lens is. It's a classic planar, which means it's going to have a really vintage rendering like every 50mm used to, and it's going to require that I pay attention. So this camera is not about like better image quality, because to be frank, the R5 makes a better image than this. Don't tell anybody, but it does. But it makes me interact with the process differently.
It slows you down as well.
Exactly. And you were saying before about I wanted to get out and do projects on my own. So the first time I took that out, I went to a pottery studio in the local area because I've started doing more education work, and my design is that I use any time that I've bought myself by doing education to give away or help promote people for free or with low charge, and give them tools they could use to advertise themselves they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. So going into these situations, I took it out to this pottery studio. It's literally a box of maybe 6 feet by 12 feet with one window about 1 foot square. And that's the only light we've got. I took 2 XH2Ss, these cameras, set them up, let them run with a microphone attached to the guy, and then took photographs of the GFX slowly. We spent 3 hours. I got 3 hours worth of footage, and I got about 200 photographs. And it is the most fun I've had on a shoot in years. And that is not because of the equipment. It is because it was slowed down, I was considered, and I had to work a problem. Like, the difference between the way we approach things is that I like the idea of imposing an kind of a narrative on the image through the way that something looks, but I don't want to alter the way that something looked in the moment. I want it to feel like a heightened version of what was already there. And every time I've tried to do the opposite and tried to overly polish something, I've been less and less satisfied with the results. So for me, the reason this equipment is valuable is not because of the price of it, because frankly, it came from a much more expensive kit before this. It was a method of forcing me to connect with the subject more, to stop being as distracted as I was. And I think that you're trying to get at the same thing. You're getting rid of extra lighting equipment so you don't have to carry it, which means the burden on your body physically is lower. You don't have to move it as far, so you can be more mobile and get to places that you couldn't go before.
The stuff I've always been most pleased of is showing people things that a scenario doesn't really exist, right? So I underexpose the background a lot. So if you were to look at the scene with heavy Ray-Ban shades on and then have someone pointing a torch at someone's face, then you've not far off got what I do. But that's the stuff I really enjoy. My backgrounds are always darkened, and there's always a focus on the subject. So as far as being natural goes, your work's lovely. I've seen obviously a lot of it over the years. This is the important thing. The running the podcast has really allowed me to realise there's room for us all, but you just have to do you. I've seen so many photographers who are just chasing style after style, and they're like, oh, I'm not busy, I'm not doing this. I'm like, is that you, or is that your work? Is it your work? No, it's what you think people want to do. People pleasing sucks, right? So be yourself, do you, and if you really care about what you do, that comes through in your work. Like, it just does. Like, people are so in tune to it. They're like, that guy clearly loves what he does. Or that lass is fantastic and she clearly has a passion for it. So it's whatever you do something you love, because then you'll get hired for things you love. Don't chase what's cool. You're never, ever going to be pleased with your own work if you are trying to chase a style or replicate someone else's, or just do you. And this is speaking from experience. This is speaking from during COVID. I suddenly had this absolute bolt of panic, and I was like, oh, it's me. It's not a global pandemic that shut everything down. It's me and it's my work. Obviously, the logic in lockdown was not solid. You do just go, oh my God, okay, I'll change. So I bought, and this goes back to system swaps. I had bought the R5 like a month before lockdown, and I had done 2 personal shoots on it that I had shot through the viewfinder, didn't have the brightnesses set up. So then the exposures were a bit all over the shop. It doesn't really matter because it's personal work, but still. I then, over the lockdown, only really had those 2 shoots to edit up. And so I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it did my mental health absolutely no favours whatsoever to constantly be going over these things. So I was like, oh, maybe I should make it look like this person's work, or maybe I should do this, or maybe I should soften it, and it just was just like completely diluted. And about 6 to 8 months ago, I started feeling like I was like pulling myself properly out of it, like properly coming out of it. And the past month and a half, I've been shooting some stuff where I've come away from the shoot and been like, yeah, nailed that. I'm super proud of that. That looks absolutely wicked. That is what I do. And it's all, being a creative and all that in the industry and in the world we work in, it's always a process, isn't it? And you've got to have these dips to then come back up and then know that what you're doing is right for you. Sorry, again, up in the night. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. She walks into our room at 3 a.m. I'm thirsty. I'm like, I'm really tired. You need to go back to sleep.
Last night, my son just decided he had a nightmare, crawled into the bed, and that was it. And I was like, oh, okay, now we're all awake.
Yeah, wicked. 2 a.m.
And then wakes up at 5, because that's apparently what kids do. But it's just parent life. And actually, that's another point to come to, because obviously you're juggling a lot of stuff going forward. But talking on your practice of separating from the background, one of my favourite images that you've ever made, as far as at least that I've seen, is of a woodworker in a shed with literally the fingers of God coming from behind with the smoke in the room.
John. Yeah.
So
what would you like to know?
The thing is that it's a sun sandwich. Like, it's an impossible photograph. Like, it goes to exactly what you were saying. There is no way in the real world he would ever have been this intensely lit from the front and that intensely lit from behind. It's literally impossible. You would need 2 suns for that to be the case. But I love it. And the reason I love it is because it feels like a perfect distillation of what you were talking about. You're not looking to try and present something as being real. There is no conceit that this is something that actually happened in reality. This is this person as strong as they can look visually. This is this environment as strong as it can look visually. Mm-hmm. And those two things are married by technique, essentially. I think that something that's gone missing recently is this idea that it is okay to both massively admire somebody's work and not desire to adopt it. It's incredibly frustrating to me when I see people give away something that is incredibly unique to them and adopt something because it is trendy, essentially. Because there was a point in maybe sort of 5 years ago or so where this kind of like off-camera flash technique was massively popular. Like, people like Joey L had done it, and he was big on the internet, and as a result of that, like, everybody was aping this style. Mm-hmm. And you can see the people that stuck with it had an affinity for it. It was like that was the thing that attracted them to photography. But there was a whole cohort of people that were doing it because that's what you did. Yeah. And I think that's the worry. And you see a similar trend at the moment with film photography. There's a lot of people that are aping the style of like point and shoot film cameras, or they're trying to ape the style of Contax 645 or Pentax 67 in the fashion world. And I wonder how many of those people will still have that style going forward. And that's not to say you shouldn't like explore and try new things, but it's just, I'm trying to encourage people to be okay with the fact that somebody's work is different to yours and not require your own work to change as a result of that. There is a point in your career you will reach mastery of your technical ability, and then you have to protect your uniqueness. Once you've got to that stage where you're competent, it's not about emulation anymore. It's about self-actualization, doing something that will develop you and stand you apart from the other people in your community.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I just think it's like the 10,000 hours, isn't it? I can't remember what they say. 10,000 hours to not perfect it, but to not master it, but to like maybe become...
So the quote's from Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and that book's talking about competitive advantage. So it talks about people having reached 10,000 hours to then have the opportunity to capitalize on an environmental advantage. So, for example, if you were the youngest person in your year group, you technically benefit because you are physically younger, but also have more education than somebody else. So it's the way you deal with competitive advantage. So when you're talking about 10,000 hours, it's talking about how do you get to the same point that everybody else is faster. And it was an analysis of your circumstances. It wasn't really meant as a practice or method. It was an observation that people like Bill Gates, for example, grew up at a time where it was possible to have mastery before a massive technological leap, to be competent and capable when your circumstances allowed you to capitalize. Like in your circumstance, for example, it'd be the bedsheet in your lounge studio with the light bouncing off it. That gave you the prep work to understand off-camera flash enough that when Kerrang calls or you get to that gig, you have your chops solid enough that you can capitalize on that opportunity. So the reason you're struggling with it is because they call it mastery, but actually in the execution when it's described, it isn't mastery. It's like, how do you get to your starting point with the skills that you need? That's what Outliers was talking about.
Yeah, mastery is a funny one, isn't it? Because I hope that I never master it. I don't want to master it. I still want to keep learning. I kind of want to, it's the excitement of photography for me is I'm like, well, what if I put that there? What if I do this? I think I know the principle of it. I'm sure I will figure it out. The other day I did this top secret shoot and had to create a really hard shadow. And I was like, somebody mentioned to me, if I flip the flash head on its side and then we make a cone, and we built this weird contraption, but we were using exposed tubes, and we ended up getting absolutely the hardest shadows you will have ever seen on anything. They are just so hard. And I was like, great. It's the first time I've ever done that on a job. Looks wicked. Really pleased with that. Fun times. Well, it's like a food photographer trick. And I was like, yeah, I can use it in a portrait. Why not? And it was super cool. And I really hope that I never lose that like curiosity to still want to try stuff. Photography is now great. And I know I'm minimizing the kit down, but I am still going to have a 5-head kit, which is enough to do pretty much anything. Won't light a jumbo jet, but if I'll hire next time I have to shoot one of them. The kit had bogged me down. You get pigeonholed. Oh, Tom's very good at doing location portraits. We'll send him. Actually, I like doing everything. As long as there's like someone in front of my camera who can talk back to me, I'll photograph them. I do some celebrities. I do normal people. I don't care who it is in front of the lens. And you touched on it earlier. I've been brought up to treat the CEO the same as the cleaner.
Yeah,
I don't care who it is. Like I went and photographed some of the richest people in the world, and they're like, "Oh, do you care about money?" I'm like, "I don't care about your money." What does it matter? And they're like, "Oh man, this is so refreshing. You don't want anything from me. I'd just like you to look down the lens and smile. Really, is that too much? Is that too much to ask?" There's a lot of stuff that happens, but I just think when you do get pigeonholed, and this is why I'm doing this big whole change now with the kit, is basically to give myself a feeling of a bit more freedom, less tethered down by the equipment, a bit of a freedom to be able to move around, do whatever I want, and just crack on and do me. Okay, it's just the most important thing. You just got to create work that you're pleased with, that you like, and that you enjoy shooting. The rest will come. I'm going to start posting some stuff out in a few months on Instagram, and I'm going to be like, I am really proud of this. Great. I'll enjoy it all again. I might even put myself back on Instagram. I've deleted it off my phone.
In terms of social media then, did you find that kind of exacerbated some of those kind of distractions, like that desire to get the kit? Oh, God. The triggers on social media, they want you on that app. You are doom scrolling forever. That is the whole way they are built. And it's not good for you, like at all, regardless of what career, what you do or anything like that. But it's particularly bad for photographers, because not only do you see all these latest and greatest people going, oh, you need this equipment, you need this slider, you need this flash, you need this box, whatever. But you've also got other photographers going, hey, I just shot this job. And you're like, oh, why didn't I get that job? You weren't in the room. And also, what's for you won't pass you by. I've learned a couple of really good quotes over the past couple of months. Number one, what's for you won't pass you by. That job obviously wasn't meant for you. You might have been final two, but it wasn't meant for you. So move on. Go and if you like the job that much, reach out to the people who made it. Just be like, oh, I really enjoyed that. I might be relevant if you ever do another version of it. Right? Second quote is, it was by an old American president. For the life of me, I can't remember which one. Teddy Roosevelt. I can't remember. See? And he said, comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah, that's a great one.
Isn't that good? Like, full on, if you're comparing yourself to other people, you are going to be miserable. You are going to be miserable. Stop comparing yourself to others. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they've got a bigger car or a bigger house or more money in the bank. It doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant to you. You need to make sure you're comfortable with your life and what you've got going on. Don't compare yourself to others. There's simply no point. And then, my favourite quote, let me minimise it down so I don't butcher it. So I have it set as my background. So I have I have really plain black backgrounds as my screen backgrounds. And then I have in really faint text, I have those 3 quotes, and they randomise. So every time it starts up, I see the quote as the first thing. And so this one is, you'll worry less what others think of you when you realise how seldom they do. And I was like, wow, that's a brutal quote, but at the same time, super freeing. People don't care about what you're doing. People don't care what you're up to. People don't care about your work as much as you do. Like, you are the person who cares most about your work. Get up out your chair and show it. There's actually a great book about that by a guy called Austin Kleon.
Yep. Show your work.
Show your work. And if you're ever in a bit of a funk and you haven't shown your work, or you're a bit like, ooh, a bit done with Instagram, read the book. Just get out there, and there's no point in having photographs just sat on your thing. You might as well just show your work.
We've already talked a little bit about exposed negative, but I wanted to talk about it from the point of view of how that has helped to broaden people's experience. Like you mentioned before, I am simplifying my kit to 5 strobe lights. To be frank, I own 0. I have had strobe lights, but I don't have any right now. And part of what kind of blew my mind was the scale of some of the productions that people working as photographers have. And it's incredibly variable. Like somebody like Lucy Lorch, for example, that you interviewed like earlier in the podcast, tended to carry minimal kit, walking around with Leica equipment, all this kind of stuff, beautiful work. Yeah. And in fact, she's done some work with Tor Harrison, again, amazing photographer, and the lightest touch, like just nothing. And I think that the fact that you made a platform to have those conversations and have both ends of the spectrum talked about with equal weight is something special. So I was interested. So you've obviously been running this podcast now for a number of years. Are we on 3 or 4 years now?
Do you know what? I actually don't know. We're at episode 45.
That's a good number.
Yeah, I don't know. Like a couple of years.
What has been your biggest takeaway from having spoken to all of these professionals, people that you respect? Is there anything that's really stood out to you as being more valuable than the rest?
Honestly, no. The trouble is, because we are dealing with the breadth of modern photography, is that everyone brings, and this is what I love about photography, everyone brings, and doing the podcast, everyone brings something slightly different. Art Stryber and me and Greg, we ended up having a separate chat about off air, and he was just like, oh, you guys like databases? Do you want to see mine? So me and him sat for 2 hours with Greg over Zoom, and we just all had breakfast together. And he had breakfast and we had dinner, I think it was. But we all had our food together, and we just chatted through databases. And he was just like, here is a database that has been 20 years in the making. And we were just like, wow, that's amazing. We've been really blessed with the podcast. That people listen and find it interesting and useful. And our wonderful guests have been so generous with everything that they've shared with us, and especially they've been incredibly honest on air, but also, you'll know, people are incredibly honest off air as well. I feel now that I'm a better business owner and photographer as a direct result of having started the podcast. Yes, it has been a time suck and it is a lot of work to do it, but has it benefited me personally? Absolutely. Has it benefited the wider photography community? I really hope so.
It absolutely has. I'm going to stand in for everybody that's listened. It's definitely benefited the wider.
There's that one guy, though, who's just like, it hasn't.
You've only got one guy. That's incredible. Every time I post a video, I get at least 15 terrible comments. There was one of them, I'd posted some sample footage from the XH2S. And somebody said to me, and I quote, the autofocus would work better if you had a better face. And I thought, this is what the internet is for. It's for an angry person telling me that I'm ugly. That's what the internet's for.
If I'm honest, I didn't think I'd put my name on the comment.
You did, but you signed it Chuck Norris, so I thought I can't really compete with that. So
here's the thing. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Tom, I think you've got a beautiful face. Honestly, you're a very good-looking chap. Look at that.
Thank you.
See? Look at this guy. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. I simply don't care what someone on the internet thinks. Are you pleased with the video? Are you pleased with the content? Okay, we'll move on. On to the next thing. It simply doesn't matter. I don't care what Barry from Skegness, apologies, by the way, if there is anyone in Barry, from Skegness called Barry who is listening. I don't mean to single you out specifically, but I don't know you. I don't know your pedigree. I don't know what your vibe is. And simply, it doesn't bother me what you think. I'm sorry. I'm sure Barry from Skegness is gutted. Chuck Norris, unless it was the actual Chuck Norris, but I don't think that's possible.
You see, that was my real hope. If the real Chuck Norris thinks that I'm ugly, I have to accept it because that's objectively true, because Chuck Norris is always right. But if it's anybody else, I'm okay with it.
It just doesn't matter, does it? Here's the thing. You just have to please yourself. But we're in a very tough job. I know I've made like jokes and light of it throughout this, but no denying that photography is a horribly tough job. And if you're succeeding at it, then more power to you. Even if you're not succeeding at it and you're enjoying it, more power to you. It simply doesn't matter what someone on the internet thinks. Unless they're turning up at your door with a hatchet, then that might be an issue. But you might want to cut that bit out.
People get swatted, it's a thing. Like that's definitely a danger. So I think it's probably good that you caveated a little bit, because some people on the internet are pretty toxic.
100% are. But so what I did is that I removed Instagram from my phone. And I did it for a month. My productivity went through the roof. My enjoyment of my life went through the roof. I don't care now. And it was great. I've put Instagram back on my phone, but with the caveat of I don't really open it. I've managed to break the cycle. There's no kind of temptation of it. And I put on a little lock. So screen time on the iPhone, you can set screen time limits per application. So I give myself 5 minutes a day. And the reason I do 5 minutes is because 5 minutes is normally the amount of time it will take me to properly post some nice stories from a shoot day. And that's the only reason I've got the app. I don't look at people's stories. I don't scroll. I don't doom scroll. I don't care what anyone else is up to, bluntly. I'm doing me. It's my career. It's my life. I'll keep myself happy. If other people really like the work, cool. If they don't, I'll do it regardless. Sorry. You've just got to, if you're happy, oh God. And obviously you want everyone to be happy. Like the number one rule in my house is be kind, right? But you've got to look after it and you've got to be kind to yourself first. Because to hate to quote RuPaul, but if you ain't going to love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anyone else? You do have to start with a bit of self-love. And self-love for photographers is don't buy so much equipment, because if you're buying equipment all the time, like you had a conversation with my wife years ago. It's like, I feel I'm working like a dog and I've got no money. And I was spending thousands and thousands on this kit because that's what I thought we had to do. You don't. Get a base kit that will cover you for 95% of jobs. And then if you need extra, you can hire it, because the chances are if you need extra, the job is big enough that they're expecting to hire kit in. Number 2, look after yourself with Instagram and social media, because it's vile. Don't pay any attention to any of the comments, unless they're nice ones, obviously, because pay all the attention to those ones, but build yourself up. And so I now don't go on Instagram at all other than to post stories, and then I schedule all my posts automatically. And my views have gone down and my likes have gone down, but my happiness has gone up. Your glasses are corrective, are they?
Yes.
Mine aren't. This is an exclusive. This is the first time anyone's actually ever seen me with glasses on. So I went to the doctor and I had eye strain. So I now have, and you guys and your listeners should get some of this stuff as well. I'm not at all endorsed by this company, but Optrex Actimist stuff, and you spray it. You close your eyes and you spray it over your eyes, and then it basically just moisturizes and looks after your eyes. These are anti-blue light glasses. And then you have to remember the 20-20-20 rule. So every 20 minutes, you take a 20-second break to look at something 20 feet away. And that basically means, because we're on our screens all the time, if you just take a break and look at something, I think it actually might be 20 meters, but you basically look at something far enough away, your eye muscles will do their stuff, and you won't get eye strain, so you'll reduce things like headaches, and you'll feel more energized and stuff like that.
And actually, on that point, the switch to mirrorless is what deteriorated my eyesight to the point where I needed glasses. Because there's like a fundamental difference between using an SLR, where you're essentially seeing reflected light from a long way away, to looking at emitted light directly in front of your eyeball. Like the eye that is more heavily affected is actually the one that I used to shoot with primarily. I'm left eye dominant, but I've now switched to shooting with my right eye to give my left eye a break for exactly this reason. And I think this is another thing that comes back to kit. For anybody that's currently on a mirrored camera like a DSLR, if you feel happy where you are and you're getting the results you want, I'd say don't switch purely for a medical reason, because actually having a monitor that close to your eye all the time really isn't that good for you. And personally, it's massively increased eye strain. I remember one of the last weddings I would ever shot was on a Sony camera, and I was in the Dominican Republic, and it was like the humidity was through the roof. It was insane. And there was like salt spray from the ocean. And I remember by the time I got to the evening reception and I had my cameras, I couldn't see, because the combination of the salt water and the kind of strain on my eyes was such that literally I could not focus on anything. So the dance floor pictures were real blurry. Not from a creative reason, I couldn't see anything. But this is the thing, like there are definitely elements of photography that can take the toll on your health. And we talked already about the physical toll that photography can take on you, the emotional toll and the kind of psychological effect it can have, like constantly feeling like your value is external. One of the things I've absolutely loved, Tom, is that talking to you today, it's reminded me that the value is in the person taking the picture. That the way that I feed myself, the way that I look after myself, and the way that I choose to present the things I saw to the world, they are more important than the tools that I use to gather it.
That's completely right. The thing is, the tools are sort of irrelevant. You don't really look at older classics and be like, oh, what was that shot on? You don't. You look at it and go, wow, what a great picture. All this stuff, but it's taken me so long to realise this myself. If you listen to old podcasts of me, I'm like, gah. Things have to get quite bad before they get better. I feel like I've got to the point where I own all the equipment in the world to realise that I don't need all the equipment in the world, and I'm bringing myself back to actually what I do need. So I'm going to have the 2 bags and the camera bag over there. It literally means I can grab a bag, roll out to a job. I won't have to think about it, because with all this kit, I was going, where's this? Where's that? And then so I would get up an hour and a half earlier than I normally would have to then double check the kit because I couldn't find the clips or whatever. And I was just like, do you know what? For peace of mind, anxiety reduction, stress reduction, I'm just going to have what I actually need for a job. And I've done now 2 weeks of jobs with this new kit, and it is working beautifully. Like, my anxiety is like through the floor, and it's tough. All of the stuff we talked about today is I totally get that it's tough for people, for maybe some people to hear, because they're a bit like, no, but I do feel the stress. I totally hear that. And you do have to get to a certain level in your career, not necessarily client-wise, but like confidence, techniques, and all of that sort of stuff, in order for you to go, actually, I don't need that. Or I don't want to do that job. Or that's not for me. There's all a certain level of confidence and a level of certain self-awareness that only really comes in time. But yeah, hopefully people have found it interesting.
That's ultimately the bit that's missing. I feel like part of the reason you can so confidently say, I don't need this, is because you've tested. I think one of the reasons why some people do feel like they constantly need to be acquiring is they're still in a phase where they don't know 100% how best to tell the story. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help that you've got external pressure saying you need this. But a big part of the way that I've decided to speak generally is about what's best for somebody else. So one of the things I do as part of the workflow courses that I do is try and help people to select equipment. But I can honestly tell you, the number of times that somebody's actually had to change cameramans after speaking to me is countable on one hand. I've taught this way for years. And the reason that's the case is 9 times out of 10, what you are feeling is uncertainty. And it's not actually an inadequacy. And I think the prime example, we had a conversation a while ago when the R5 came out, when you were having that crisis of confidence about the lenses that went with the R5. I got the 50mm 1.2 and I got the 50mm 1.8. And every time I use the 50mm 1.2, I'm like, this is too sharp. Like, it's too detailed. Let's turn the sharpening off. That wasn't enough. Let's turn the clarity down. That wasn't enough. And I was fighting with that piece of kit over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And there was the other option, which was a £199 lens. And genuinely, what I really wanted them to do was produce that lens with the coating from the more expensive one. Stupid thing is they do. It's called the Canon EF 50mm 1.2. It's literally the lens that had been around for that 30 years that you mentioned before.
Yep.
And a big issue is that you can abandon something valuable for something that is not important to you because it has a metric that can be measured that is better, in inverted commas. The pressure that I want to take off people is, if you are satisfied with what you have, keep it. if you are dissatisfied with what you have, try and examine the source of it. Like you were saying, Tom, in your case, you knew that any more than a certain size of kit was vanity and pointless and a burden. But if I took all your strobes away from you, you probably wouldn't be happy either, because you know exactly what you need, you know why you need it. And if I take too much away, you'll be unhappy. But if I give you more than you need, you'll be unhappy as well. Yeah. And I think there's that equilibrium that we all need to find in this process.
Obviously, with the kit amount, it comes down to jobs as well, because obviously every job's different. So if you go in, I've done this a couple of times in the past, where you go and hire a big studio and you have 4 different setups. Now, I don't know any photographers who own enough. I used to have enough to do the 4 different setups, but I don't know any other photographer who owns enough to do the 4 different setups. The client also doesn't know any photographers who own that amount of equipment. They are fully expecting to spend money on hiring kit. So that took me a long time to get around that idea that I could just quite easily hire equipment. So now I'm set up with all the hire houses. I can ring them the day before and be like, this is what I need. And it's taken a whole load of pressure off. But you do have to find, and in the early days, you want to end up probably buying more kit to try and figure out what it is you want to do. But save yourself a bit of effort and sit down and be like, what is it I really love? What's my passion? What's my calling? What is it I really love photographing? If you are a photographer who really loves doing macro stuff, lean into it. But think of it like maybe a creative commercial way that can be used. That was a very niche use that I seem to have pulled out of the air.
There's a food photographer I know of really well that does exactly that. It's like geometric, hard light, macro of food. But it's definitely not out of the realms.
No, absolutely. But here's the thing. If you are a photographer who loves working with people, but for some reason you are ending up shooting cars, you'll end up buying the 300mm 2.8 or all those massive, great long lenses. And you go, well, actually, I don't really like shooting cars. It's a bit boring. I want to photograph people. Don't buy the 300 2.8 then. Hire it if you need it. Go and do the job, but hire that lens. Hirealens.com or whatever it is. This is me honestly wanting to go back in time and talk to myself. Don't buy the kit. You don't need it. You really don't. The chances are you've got more than enough already to do most things. And if you want to start experimenting with flash, obviously you'll have to buy flashes and stuff like that. But buy a cheap one, or hire one, or borrow one from a mate to try and figure out if, A, you can do a bit of practice with it, but it might not be for you. Each one of these rollers is 31.5 kilos. They've been specifically designed, and I've specifically built them up in weight to fly on airplanes, right? But also 31.5 kilos, if I've got some big assistants, I've got no issues with them carrying those bags or rolling those bags. The bag I have outside the door weighed 52 kilos when it was full. That's too much. That's too much. And so it had 15 stands in, like proper heavy C stands and stuff like that. And then it had loads of other stuff. Probably wasn't like 50 kilos, but it was definitely in the 40s. And I had a rule on set that no one was allowed to touch that bag bar me. I packed it, I carry it. Whereas on the other bags, people quite happily pick them up and carry them. You need to figure out if lugging kit is part of the workflow you want to endure. Lugging kit around is hard work as a photographer. I'm blessed, really. Like, I'm a big dude. I'm like 6'6" and 120 kilos. I can lift most things, not cars and stuff, but like most camera bags, like I can pick up and walk with. But there are a lot of people in photography who are considerably smaller stature than me, and if I've got them coming along on shoots, I need to make sure I look after them. I can't have a bag that only I can lift, because at some point they will probably try and lift it because it has to be moved out of the way, or it has to quickly get out, quickly get into the van or whatnot. So think about it. If you're thinking about going down a flash route, look at all the different brands. They're all different. There's all different price points. Buy one or rent one, borrow one from a friend. Try and figure it out. Do what I said at the beginning. Look after the ambient, then build the flash up. See what you like, and yeah, go from there. But just don't do what I did. Speaking from experience, buying all the best kit in the world and having tons of it weirdly only leads to misery. Can I just say thank you very much for having me on?
Honestly, it's been wonderful having you on, and I think it's nice. It's been nice to hear from somebody that's at the level that you're at, that really the kind of pains that you feel at every level of the photography industry are valid, and you don't have to worry about buying the next greatest thing or worry about what anybody else is doing. Stay in your lane, keep working, and you'll get there. I think that's amazing advice and encouragement for anybody. And yeah, massive thanks, Tom. I really appreciate
I think one of the nice things about society now is that there's no harm in talking about this sort of stuff.
No.
You'd be honest. You say, yeah, no, I've seen a counsellor, fine. You've seen a counsellor. Well, probably most people are seeing counsellors. It's just everyone historically would have been like, oh, I won't admit to that because it's a sign of weakness. No, it's a sign of strength because you're looking after yourself.
And in the last episode, the guest that we had on started their photography business. They were wedding photographers because one of the two photographers in this couple was having panic attacks so bad that she couldn't be left alone. So as a newly married couple, they decided that they were going to build their lives around their very real mental health and medical needs. I keep thinking that you're right. There are so few people that actually make it as a photographer in any way, shape or form, that if you're going to do it, you may as well do it in a way that you enjoy. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point in all this?
This is it. If you're in it to earn money, go off and do what I was going to do and go into property, or go off and do anything else. Like photography, there are some people who make some real money. But going forward, my outlook for the industry is a little bit ropey, and I just think you've got to enjoy it. You've just got to love what you do.
Between you and me, I was genuinely looking at this because in the area that I'm at, I could put a deposit down on a house for 10 grand and make a way better return than buying the new GFX. I'm starting to look at things and think, this isn't any longer about satisfying me creatively. This is about sparing myself some kind of psychic pain. How do I avoid the discomfort and having to address the fact that I am the reason that I'm not happy? That's a really hard conversation for anybody to have. So how do you get around that? Yeah.
You just have to look after yourself. You do it by. So you've not talked about it at all. Sorry, I know you're trying to wrap this up, but I keep going off on things. Oh, fine.
You're good.
The KISS method. Right, you know the KISS method?
Simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. This is the thing I now live my life by.
Yeah.
I've spent years overcomplicating things, making things way more complicated than they actually need to be, and just then creating all sorts of levels of stress that just don't need to be there. All the camera system swaps. Didn't need to do a single one of them, really, in the grand scheme of things. I needed to just stick with the old 5DSR and then a C200. Or I needed to buy a C300 Mark III or something. And then I could have shot the video and the stills and just had different cameras.
I'm finding the same with the Fujis. The GFX feels like something that's going to stay because I picked it up, I used it for the first time. I was like, no, this is scratching an itch I haven't had since we had good film labs that actually were open, since Peak shut down.
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
And it's nothing to do with the technology. It's just big sensor, fast lens, and manual. But whereas the XH2Ss, they're amazing for video, but then, and they don't overheat, which is lovely, because I had genuine issues with the Canons. And the reason I switched in the end was because they had announced the R6 Mark II for £500 more than the camera that I had already. And the only headline feature was, this one won't burn up. I was like, that's...
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah, this one's not broken.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing should be expected, that your camera isn't going to overheat. But you know what? Since I moved to the R5Cs, and they're a fantastic camera. They are.
Aside from the battery life.
Hey, here's the thing, right? With the battery life, if you're rigging it for cine use, you're rigging a V-lock anyway because you need the extra D-tap outs. So actually, the only people who are really screaming about the battery life that I can see are people on YouTube who are trying to run everything off the internal battery. And you go, well,
it's not meant for that.
No, exactly. It's not meant for that. But also in stills mode, the battery life is the exact same thing as the R5.
And I like that it doesn't have IBIS for stills.
It seems nice. I'm getting a really nice look from it now. I'm really pleased with it. I think there's a couple of things, there's a couple of foibles that I really wish they'd fix.
That's the same for every brand. Fuji's driving me nuts right now because the actual focus is not accurate. So it'll show you that right now it's showing the box of my eye. It's tracking me nicely. In video, it's perfect. In stills, it has a habit of telling me it's in focus, and then when you get the raw files back, they're not.
Really?
Yes, and it's not just me.
That's a firmware thing though, right?
Must be.
That's killer. That throws your trust in the whole system. Also, I didn't think that was meant to happen with mirrorless.
It's not just Fuji, in fairness. Like, there's a similar issue with Panasonic, Leica, and a bunch of other cameras. The issue is that the tracking algorithm is on point, so that the screen is showing what's being tracked. It is not necessarily showing that the critical focus has been achieved. Okay. Whereas with Sony and Canon, for example, their AF systems are completely opposite. Canon will always shoot everything wide open, whereas autofocus on a Sony is done at the taking aperture and a bunch of other bits and pieces. They've all found different ways to get to where they want to be. And I understand the system enough to know when and where I can't trust it. But what I'm trying to get to is that this camera is the closest thing to perfect I've ever had in terms of an easy-to-use tool. Love the colour. Love the smaller sensor because it stops me from shooting everything at 1.2 all the time, and if I do, it's like an f2 equivalent. Really love them for video. They are possibly the best hybrid camera I've ever used, and I have had an R5C. But there's always going to be some kind of Achilles heel. And the part of me wonders whether this is by design, because it's like the Canon R6. It was perfect for me until they released the firmware before they launched the R6 Mark II. And then all of a sudden it overheated. I'm not trying to be like conspiratorial about it, but if you're going to solve a problem, you may as well make the problem clear.
Like I said earlier in the show, the technology is moving and it does feel like it's plateauing a little bit. And especially with Kaizen, the kind of like the incremental improvements and improving things via firmware. Yeah. It does now mean I like many of the R5 owners, are very appreciative that Canon are doing those big firmware updates. But, sorry. At the same time, it's like, guys, these are problems that should have been fixed before the product came to market.
Exactly.
And the R6 II, the only reason I bought it is because you saw earlier, I've got the custom modes in video. So I now, because yes, you said rightly, it's a very fancy webcam. But I record videos for social media, and I do this, and I do Zooms, and I do the podcast as well. And so I need those modes to be able to give me a Rec 709 image, a log image, and then a black and white image out of the HDMI. So there aren't really very many options to do that, for example. But yeah, it's a bit overkill. But yeah, I'm glad you're pleased with the Fujis. I know we talked about that.
I love them. And for me, the reason why I'm sticking with it is that a friend of mine said, if you're going to pick a camera system, pick one that you think you'll still be using in 10 years. And I think I found one. Because all the things you can't change, like their optical designs, like the new LM lens is the 33-18, there's a 56, and there's probably others, but they're the ones I've tried. They just render right. They're not too sharp. They're not...
LM stands for linear motor?
Yeah, so they're silent focusing. So this is the 18mm 1.4 LM, and there's no... It's instant focused. There's no lag. They're amazing from that point of view, and they're great for video. But they've considered things like out of focus rendering really well. Like they strike that balance between vintage where there's some definition to out of focus areas, but they're not super distracting. And it's not like a color wash, which is an issue that I had with Canon's RF lenses, that there was very little kind of cat's eyeing or onion ringing, which is stuff that I personally like and everybody complains about in reviews. Whereas with Fuji, every lens that I've tried has felt like the perfect compromise. So the 33 1.4, it feels like an old Summicron, like 50mm Summicron, like in the way that it renders. And I didn't realize how much I appreciated that until I was just taking photographs and not noticing it in the moment. And then looking back at the shot later and thinking, like, there isn't a lot of blur here, but what's here is just exactly what I wanted every time.
So what you're saying is they've got character, but not clinical. The RF stuff is amazing, but it's very clinical, which for me is great because that's what I'm after. I want all that detail, but with your stuff, it wouldn't suit it. I totally get it.
And that's where the GFX kind of fills in as well, because the only thing I don't love about the smaller Fujis is that if I want something that is more tactile, everything's focused by wire, everything's disconnected, and I can't get as shallow a depth of field as I would like. Whereas on the GFX, I'm shooting essentially a 40mm 0.9, but manually focused. And it's a lens with the maximum amount of defects, but it's technically a modern optic. So again, it in terms of the character perfection scale, it's definitely more on the character end. But there's enough that if I stop it down to f2, for example, it's perfectly usable and I could deliver anything from it to anybody and it'd be fine.
Nice.
When I talk about gear, like my worry is that somebody will listen to what I say and think that means I should buy it, and that's not the case. Like there are lots of photographers I've dealt with recently that are shooting Canon systems, and I've said to them point blank, never change, because that is the perfect system for you. And the same with Sony. There's no reason why you should move just because I don't use what you use.
Yeah.
You're supposed to follow your bliss. Do it the way that makes you feel better, and not just because I've decided that I'm not going to use it anymore.
Also, I think 20 years ago, the idea of moving systems was laughed at by loads of photographers. I was like, I might move to Nikon, and people would be like, why do you be sensible? Why do you want to move systems? But now there's no brand loyalty. People are very happy to just move systems all the time, whereas actually it's a bit of a fool's errand. Like, it just doesn't ever get you the gains that you're hoping for.
Yeah. Like a friend of mine moved to Fujifilm when he left working for a studio, and he did it because it was the only camera he could afford. At the time, the X-T1 was out, and it was like $500 because he's in California, and he just never changed. And every time I look at his work, I'm like, it looks consistent. And then I look at my own work and think, yeah, this looks consistent as well. And this is the point before, that we use these tools and we shape them to the way that we see the world. And we can feel like, oh, it's successful, it's unsuccessful because of the amount of pain that it causes in the post-production or like in the acquisition. But actually, we're still getting there. It's not as if like your work is suddenly going to look like Greg's just because you start using a Fujifilm for a little bit. That's just not how it works.
I should say, if my work looked like Greg's, I'd be very pleased. He's got some lovely work. So
absolutely.
But the thing is, it's not for me. Greg's work and my work, we're very different, worlds apart. Just, I'm very pleased. I think you just got to keep yourself happy, haven't you? Just got to look after number one.
Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. For anybody that's going to go follow your work, where are the best places to contact you?
I wouldn't bother. No, okay, so I'm online, tombarnes.com. I'm the Tom Barnes, and that's TOM, obviously, BARNES.com. And then I'm on Instagram, and that is instagram.com/tombarnes.com, and that is DOTCOM at the end. And then I'm on LinkedIn. That'd be cool. And yeah, I don't really do any of the other social medias. I'm on Facebook, but never bother. And I'm on Twitter, and absolutely never bother, because that place is a bin fire. Yeah, basically, Instagram and my website. And yeah, can I give a plug to the podcast?
You should. It's the morally right thing to do.
And also, Greg will wrap my knuckles if I don't. But if you want to follow that show, it's exposenegative.com, and then obviously it's Expose Negative on all of the podcast services.